Well, good morning. I am going to start and say hello. This is all about hormones and heart rate variability. And I am Luann Lavin, nurse practitioner here at the MaxWell Clinic. And I'm very happy to have Dr. David Ferriss, MD, here with me today as well to chime in about hormones and the dysfunction of hormones and or the good function of hormones and how our heart and heart rate variability with our autonomic nervous system is playing a huge role in how we are able to support or not support a really good hormone regulation for ourselves. So you're probably aware of how good you can really feel when your hormones are working well. I mean, that's how we grow up if we're fortunate, right? But you also may be aware of how terrible you can feel when things aren't going right. And we don't always know if there are hormones, but very many times they can be. So here at the MaxWell Clinic, we do a lot of testing. And we are finding that, yes, we really focus on diet and we really focus on exercise and adapting our lifestyle modifications as optimally as we can do. But we also know that there is a deep-rooted autonomic nervous system that is constantly beating the drum, and that's coming from our heart and that heart rate variability. So today we're going to talk about all of that. And hormones in general, I just want to put a foundation out there so you know what I mean when I'm talking about hormones and just talk about the basics of hormones for a minute. So this applies to men and to women. And yes, men have estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, just like women do. We do know that estrogens can have an inflammatory effect. They also can be amazing and grow things just lovely in our bodies. But when they get out of control, it can be inflammation. And we're seeing this in both sexes. And I'm going to give you some examples of that here in a minute. Progesterone, which is a foundational hormone, is our calming hormone and relaxing us, helping us to sleep at night. And both estrogen and progesterone are strongly needed to be in balance, especially in women. And my patients are used to seeing me go like this when I'm discussing that, the yin and the yang, the progesterone and the estrogen, and also in men. And we do know testosterone is the hormone that's probably the most predominant in both sexes. It is the most abundant. But that estrogen and progesterone are the ones that really need to have the balance. Yes, we need all of them. So those are the big players of hormones that I'm discussing and referring to today in our discussion here. There is another one that is just a big deal. You know which one I'm going to talk about, right? It's called cortisol. So cortisol is a hormone that is oftentimes referred to as a sex hormone or a stress hormone is what I really wanted to say. And so cortisol quite often will just come in there and really mess up some of these great estrogen and progesterone ratios. And why do we need cortisol and why is cortisol so important is that it is a life sustainer. If you don't have cortisol, you're not here. And your body is always going to default to making cortisol instead of estrogen or progesterone or testosterone. And so oftentimes your sex hormones can suffer because your body is recognizing it needs that extra cortisol to stay up late at night. It needs that extra cortisol to do that workout. It needs that extra cortisol to take care of your children, to drive the car wherever you're going on vacation. And so to do your job and to be able to function at work. So yes, you can see when the body is defaulting to needing to make cortisol, absolutely always will, or you're not going to be here anymore. Then the estrogens and the progesterones and the testosterones may not get made the way they need to, and things can get out of balance. Some of the chronic diseases that you all may know, and I'm hoping that those of you who are joining us today or if you know people who are suffering from these hormone dysfunctions, have them tune into this discussion, because they're quite popular diseases or dysfunctions that we're dealing with hormones. It can start when we're younger, the first menstrual cycle. I know you didn't have a menstrual cycle, so Dr. Ferriss won't relate to this one, but if you're a male and you're younger and your hormones can get dysregulated, you may be gaining weight and you're wondering, why is that happening? Sometimes we get gynecomastia or breasts in men. And sometimes there's just no energy. And we're seeing this younger and younger in young children, might be exposed to mold or whatever. So yes, that is a disease where your hormones are getting off. Also, as young women, we grow up and we get cramping, PMS, headaches, irritability, things are starting to happen. Heavy menstrual flows, irregular cycles. You might find yourself spotting or going 2 months without having a menstrual cycle. Something called endometriosis, and it's a very complex dysfunctional hormonal disease, but your estrogens and your testosterones and your progesterones are just not in good balance, and it tends to be more of an estrogen dominant kind of a situation that happens. And you're wondering why, right? We're here to talk to you about how this can very much be related to heart rate and your autonomic nervous system. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Has anybody heard of that? Your estrogens and your testosterones are really kind of doing their thing and they're fighting each other, just like insulin and glucose can fight each other in diabetes. So yes, this too can be addressed through what we're going to talk about today. Also, early onset of ovarian failure or premature menopause. And then we have menopause, and there might be many of you out there, because I know many of our patients here are experiencing this. And I talk a lot with my patients about autonomic nervous system and heart rate variability with menopause. So those are some things. If you know people who are suffering from these issues, please have them tune in and learn more about what we're going to discuss today. So we have ovaries as women, you have testes as men, and we also have adrenal glands. Both of our sexes have adrenal glands. Those adrenal glands are really important. They're these tiny little walnut-sized glands that are on the back of our kidneys. They have nothing to do with kidney function, but they're hanging out there making cortisol. Making cortisol, right? Like all day long, depends on how much they need to make cortisol. And sometimes they get exhausted or fatigued. Sometimes they can't work for us. And we're like, nope, I'm going to have to stay in bed today. And then you also have, when you are a woman, your ovaries, which are making your estrogens and progesterones and testosterones until you go through menopause. And once you go through menopause, those ovaries close down, or you could have surgical menopause. For whatever reason, they can close down early. And then your adrenal glands are left to really take over the job of not only just making the cortisol every day, but also helping out to make whatever they can do with those sex hormones as well. Very overwhelming. Okay. And we wonder why menopause can be so difficult. So this is just the foundation of how things work hormonally in your body. And so how then do we get this autonomic nervous system and heart rate variability that can help with this? You know, your ovaries making your sex hormones, your testes making your sex hormones, your adrenal glands making your cortisol. And, you know, there's a certain beat that's going on there through your body, right? Well, if that beat's going really fast, you might be getting dysregulated. And we're going to talk about those things because this is very real. Yes, we talk about diet a lot. Mm-hmm. And yes, we talk about exercise a lot. And so stress management is something we're having conversations about. But there's so many of our patients that are doing really great things managing their stress. Yoga instructors, deep breathing, stretching, gardening, reading, just meditating before you get out of bed, and all different kinds of things that our patients are doing. And this is wonderful. But how do you know if it's really effective? It sounds good and it might feel good, but how do we know if it's actually able to help our autonomic nervous system, and so that our hormones aren't getting out of control, and that our adrenal glands aren't getting overworked and fatigued, and that all those things are able to keep in sync? Well, we think we have some answers. We're going to talk about them today. One of the things that we put in the little blurb about this lecture that was, what we were going to talk about was that your hormones are supposed to be this beautiful orchestra, all these fabulous instruments, because estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone and cortisol are only some of those hormones, and there are hundreds of them. So they all need to play together beautifully. And I really feel and believe, and I think we now know, that autonomic nervous system helps that. It's a conductor. But I think there's two conductors, actually. And the one is the autonomic nervous system, things that are happening automatically. And the other one can be your sympathetic nervous system. So there can be this autonomic nervous system, rest and digest. Sympathetic nervous system is when you are fight or flight. There's a tiger chasing you and you're running away from it. And guess what? We need both. We need to be able to run if there's a tiger coming down the hallway, right? And we need to be able to rest in order to get our energy back and reset our hormones and reset our neurotransmitters and allow our gut to heal. So we need kind of like two conductors. But if one conductor is getting more powerful than the other, and you're constantly being chased by a tiger and you're not resting and digesting, that conductor isn't there. And anyway, that's just the way I'm looking at it these days. And so I'm hoping I can turn it over to Dr. Ferriss now and have him maybe shed some more light on how we can get both conductors to work really well together.
Yeah. So, some of you may have seen previous webinars that I've done on heart rate variability and how that relates to the autonomic nervous system. As Luann has said, there are two branches of the autonomic nervous system: the sympathetic nervous system, which we tend to associate with stress, with fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which these are two parts of the same system that work together, and hopefully in a balanced way to promote and maintain health. The autonomic nervous system is that part of the overall nervous system that regulates a number of things. It regulates things like heartbeat, breathing, digestion, and hormonals. So it plays a major role in telling the various glands that secrete specific hormones when to secrete and when not to secrete. So it makes sense that if we're going to have, as Luann described, a well-balanced symphony of hormones in the body that is promoting health, that we need to pay attention to the autonomic nervous system. So one of the tools that we have that allows us to get a good handle on how well is our autonomic nervous system doing is a concept called heart rate variability. And I've done a couple of webinars on various aspects of this in the past. You can access those through the MaxWell Clinic website. But heart rate variability is not heart rate. When we think of heart rate, we think of taking someone's pulse and measuring how many beats per minute, say when they're seated in a chair. Heart rate variability is a bit different. It's what we're measuring there is how much variation is there in heartbeat from beat to beat. And we might think, well, if we're at rest and we've got a steady heart rate, that heart rate variability is very consistent. And that's not the case. It's constantly changing. And what it represents is the ability of the body to respond to different changes in the environment, heartbeat by heartbeat, and adapting the body to best deal with those. There's a tremendous body of published research underlying and supporting the science of heart rate variability. This has been studied for decades. And what we know is this: individuals with higher levels of heart rate variability tend to live longer, and they tend to have less morbidity. So increased heart rate variability is a good thing. We can measure that, and we've partnered with a Finnish company called Firstbeat. Some of you may have heard about that before. Firstbeat is a specialized company that deals in the application of the science of heart rate variability, particularly with being able to measure and assess patterns of stress and recovery. Because what we're after here is a balance between stress and recovery. If we didn't experience any stress, we wouldn't be worth much. We would get nothing accomplished. So stress is a normal part of life, and it's healthy. But when we have chronic stress, when our bodies are not getting the recovery that we need in sleep and during the day, then it becomes very disruptive. And that's going to play into the dysregulation of this symphony of hormones that Luann has spoken to. So one of the tools that Firstbeat, the company, has developed is something called Firstbeat Life. This involves wearing a small monitoring device, which is attached with an electrode just under the right clavicle, the right collarbone. And then it has another end, which is attached to a second electrode, which is affixed to the left lower rib cage. This is very lightweight. You don't even know you're wearing it once you wear it. But it gives us a real view into how the autonomic nervous system is functioning, and again, whether the body is experiencing in a given moment high stress, or is it experiencing recovery? So sympathetic activation or parasympathetic activation. And there should be a healthy interplay between those, during the day, and particularly at night, when during sleep, we want to see good, solid parasympathetic activation. This Firstbeat device allows us to measure that. And so what we will do is we'll issue one of these devices to a patient. We will have them initially wear it for 72 hours, changing the electrodes once a day, typically when they shower or bathe. It's fine to wear the device during exercise, and we want patients to do that, but you can't submerge it in water or get it wet like in a shower. So you can remove it then, and then after your shower or bath, affix it with a new pair of electrodes and continue to the monitoring. This also has in the latest version, which we have been in the process of implementing, and replaces the previous Firstbeat lifestyle assessment that we had done through 2022. It has associated with it a smartphone app. This works for both Android and iPhones. You download the app. It is connected by Bluetooth connection with the monitoring device, and it actually gives you real-time data back in a very understandable way of whether your parasympathetic system is activated and you're getting good recovery at that moment, or whether the sympathetic system is activated and you're in a stress mode.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So real time, you would see on your phone.
You're able
at
to
the same
see.
time.
So if you see, for example, that during the day, you just got lots of red, which is, it's all color coded, so it's easy to understand. And you see that you're just getting constant stress. We will expect the pattern to be mostly red during the day, but what we would like to see are at least some periods during the day when your body is able to switch into parasympathetic activation and experience recovery. And there are a number of simple mind-body techniques we can teach patients. Simple deep breathing is one of the simplest, which helps our bodies make a rapid transition from sympathetic to parasympathetic activation. And we can see that now real time on the display on one smartphone. And then at the end of the monitoring period, the system generates a detailed report that the patient and his or her clinician can review together to get that bigger picture of what their patterns of stress and recovery look like. It's particularly important, one more thing, particularly important at night and sleep. Sleep is a critical period for health. We all need sufficient sleep. And what this allows us to see is there lots of green reflecting parasympathetic activation and recovery, or as we commonly see when individuals are highly stressed, when they're dysregulated, they've got lots of red at night.
In the nighttime.
They may be sleeping 8 or 9 hours a night, but they're not getting the recovery they need. So this is a really helpful tool we really like and endorse that helps us help our patients get a good reading on their stress and recovery and take concrete actions to improve the amount of recovery that they're getting when there's an issue. And that's going to lead back to where we started with healthy hormone regulation as being a major contributor.
I'm sitting here thinking, making analogies, and know many of our patients know we use continuous glucose monitors to see how your blood sugars are doing. So this is just another way that we can be really looking at ourselves in real time. And there may be some patients that really like to see that interaction and what they can do to make a difference in that monitoring. And there may be other patients that prefer maybe not to have the continual monitoring, but just do the report and go over it with me. So it sounds like it's a very flexible kind of a tool.
One of the advantages of the new Firstbeat Life technology, which is an improvement over the Firstbeat lifestyle assessment that we were using previously, is that when we issue this to a patient to do, they will have access to the monitoring device and the information coming to them live on their smartphone for a 3-month period of time. So there's time to learn, to be educated, and then to try different things. Interventions to improve one's recovery.
Because what works for you in your recovery may not work for me in my recovery. So you're finding what works for you.
So we're really excited about this tool, and it will play a huge role not only in helping individuals regulate their hormones, but in all aspects of their lives.
I'm so grateful. Thank you very much for explaining that to us. And I think we're just so grateful to have tools like this that we can use, because we're just seeing, like Dr. Ferriss said, such a big difference in chronic disease management when we can have more adaptability through heart rate variability, and that those chronic diseases, we really can transform them. But we have to have that adaptability. If we don't, then we don't see things changing. So wonderful.
So
Thank
maybe
you.
if there are any questions in the few minutes we have left, we could,
So, and this is going to be
answer those.
recorded. So certainly if you have any questions that you want to get to us and we can respond to you at a later date, let us know. It looks like we do have a question. The question is, do you wear it for 72 hours or 3 months? Thank you. I
Yeah.
hope we didn't confuse you. And is the 72-hour just an initial analysis? Great. Thank you.
Great question. In the previous Firstbeat lifestyle assessment, we did just a 72-hour monitoring, generated a really nice report that we could then review with the patient. With Firstbeat Life, this new iteration, we'll have each patient initially do a 72-hour measurement as they did before. But then what we will do, and that will generate a report very similar to the report we used previously that gives this big picture over 72 hours of patterns of stress and recovery. So that remains unchanged. But then after that, for the remainder of that 3-month period, that the patient will have access to the monitoring device and the smartphone app that provides the patient with real-time data through their phone. They'll be able to do repeat measurements. We'll actually give each patient a packet of electrodes, and we want to encourage them to do repeat measurements at least several times over that 3-month period. It's up to the individual patient of how extensively want to use this. And those repeat measurements can be anywhere from 24 hours up to 5 days. I've done a number of 5-day measurements on myself, and it's easy to do, easy to keep up with, and can be really helpful to see what does this look like over a period of 3 to 5 days. So I hope that answers the question. But great question.
I want to get one and wear
Yeah.
it and see how that goes for me. The nighttime, especially doing it asleep and over holiday times, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to kind of measure and see what's happening when we're all so busy?
And we encourage people to do this during the work week and have it overlap for at least 1, if not 2 days over a weekend. So you see what do those patterns look like on times when you're probably likely to be under more stress, and perhaps on a weekend, less stress.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, or does it? Uh-oh, I think there's more questions. Yes, we do. Let's see. How many times do we have to be in the clinic, or can some of this evaluation be done via teledoc? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Talk to your clinician about that. I don't know if you want to bring that on, but absolutely. It doesn't seem like you have to be in the clinic very often, but I mean, yeah, your clinician can address that for you. There's no set time frame that you need to be here in order to work with this. But if you certainly are interested in it, I'm sure that your clinician will bring on those conversations. I hope that answers your question. Do we have to also buy a smartphone? That's a good question too.
Good question. If you don't utilize the smartphone, you could still use this. You just would not be able to get the lifetime, the real-time feedback and data, which is a huge advantage. But you could still do this for different periods of time, and then your clinician could review those reports with you. I see a question about, does the Aura Ring also do this? There are quite a number of wearables that are utilizing the science of heart rate variability. I would say one of the major advantages of Firstbeat is that it's medical grade. It's professional grade data. Most of the other wearables, whether they're various Fitbits or Aura Rings, I think these can be very useful for long-term use. I think the Firstbeat device, being medical grade, gives us probably the best quality data, for a period of time in which the individual is learning about their bodies, their patterns of stress and recovery, and how to modify those things.
Okay, I'm going down here. Sorry, I lost that view. Confused. Our clinician where? At MaxWell Clinic. Okay, or with Firstbeat folks. Okay, so a question, we were confusing one of our listeners. The clinician we're talking about is, yes, here
Yes,
at the
Maxwell
MaxWell
Clinic
Clinic.
clinician, yes.
That would be ordering and reviewing your Firstbeat.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think one last question, if someone buys a smartphone, need a near field device, probably. I had to buy one to use my continuous glucose monitor. Not all smartphones have the near field. I don't know if you're familiar with near field. I think that's what I'm gathering here. Maybe the Firstbeat doesn't, but if it does, the patient needs to know this so they don't waste money on the wrong model trying to save money.
The Firstbeat Life, there's an app that you download from wherever you download apps. And there's no separate charge for downloading that app. It syncs using Bluetooth technology with the monitoring device. So I'm not familiar with the field, near field. I'm not that technologically savvy, but yeah, I don't see a problem. Anybody with either an Android or an iPhone smartphone would be able to download that app and utilize the app.
But yet you don't have to use a phone at all.
You wouldn't have to. I mean, most people have and use smartphones.
They want to,
and
right?
So if they do, then most people will probably want access to the live data. But we anticipate we're in the final stages of getting this rolled out and activated. So we anticipate being able to issue it to patients in the very near future.
So I'm very excited because I think this brings to the table a real significant portfolio of amazing things to help hormonally challenged and dysfunctional patients.
Yeah.
Hormones can be sneaky. They can be things that we don't always know how to manage. And so, yeah, PCOS, endometriosis, these are really hardcore, nasty, hormonal, dysfunctional, chronic diseases. That these types of tools, I feel very strongly, need to be applied. So thank you.
Yeah, you're
all
welcome.
Of your information. And thank you everybody for listening. Certainly if there's additional questions, please let us know and we'll do our best to get back to you. Okay, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye for now.
Take care.